Good afternoon and welcome to the special Kent City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. If everyone could rise and join me in the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Kim, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph.
Here.
Council President Troutner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. So this is a special meeting. We do have only one item on the agenda this afternoon, and it's the presentation of my 2022 Mid-Biennium budget adjustment. So I'm going to go down to the podium. That way I can see everyone as we talk through the proposed adjustment. All right, good afternoon, Council. I am pleased to present to the City Council the proposed 2022 Mid-Biennium budget adjustment. The City Council adopted the original 2021-2022 biennial budget last November. That budget process represented continued collaboration between community members, the City Council, and our city departments. I firmly believe a budget is a roadmap that reflects the values of any organization. That is why I'm grateful that as city leaders, we collectively came together with shared values that centered on benefiting our residents and those who call Kent home. This proposed budget invests in council priorities surrounding equity and includes a temporary limited term race and equity coordinator and a police data collection system, including a business intelligence coordinator. In addition, there is an investment of ARPA funds in human services and in our community by providing small business loans to women and minority-owned businesses. Some of the things you've heard us talk about in workshops leading up to today. I'm going to start with the operating budget. The 21-22 biennial budget presented some significant challenges due to uncertainty related to continued impacts of the COVID crisis. As of today, there are still many unknowns regarding the timing of when things are going to get back to normal. I don't think any of us believed we would still be standing here working through this process with our masks on this long after the beginning of the pandemic. To exacerbate the challenges, the COVID-19 crisis came right on the heels of the city facing a fiscal cliff that with your help, we were able to manage that cliff in the 19-20 budget. Although we were able to mitigate the impacts of the fiscal cliff, COVID-19 delayed our ability to address the ongoing structural imbalance that the city faces each year as expenses increase annually by roughly 2.2% and the city revenues increase by roughly 1.1%. And we saw a CPIW this year of over 6%. So you think about the gap that has been created and will continue to get worse. As you know, this imbalance isn't unique to the City of Kent and is something most local government jurisdictions grapple with during their budget process. The Mid-Biennium budget adjustment provides an opportunity to modify the budget to account for unforeseen challenges and changes in fiscal events. It is not the time to bring forth new initiatives. As a result, it is a status quo budget adjustment, which focuses on changes in revenue projections and unforeseeable changes in expenditures, which may have arisen since the adoption of the original budget. A huge factor impacting the 2022 budget is inflation. The Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, the CPIW, for Washington, Tacoma, Bellevue, as of June 2021 was 6.3%. We haven't seen numbers this high since 2008, when it was 6.2%. This will have a significant impact on the expenditure side of the 2022 budget as labor contracts are tied, at least in part, to CPIW. Prior to June 2021 CPIW being released, departments were told that it would be appropriate to seek restoration of positions lost during the budget reductions last year. However, with the CPIW at 6.3%, that direction was changed. Departments were asked to limit their operating expenditure requests, keeping the requests to only those items that were unforeseeable when the original budget was passed. In addition, this budget process is unique as we have included budgets related to the additional capital and American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, available to the city in 2022. The mid-biennial budget adjustments include updating revenue forecasts, some additional operating expenditures, adding positions as temporary limited term, or TLT, to minimize the impact on future budgets, modifications to cost allocations, investing in capital, and planning the use of our ARPA funding. Of the total $420 million budget, $128 million is allocated to the general fund. The general fund will see a $17.7 million, or 16% increase in expenditures from the adopted budget. Much of the increase in expenditures are offset by revenue adjustments, leaving a gap of $1.7 million, of which fund balance will be utilized. Much of that gap is the result of utilizing fund balance for one-time expenditures. The majority of the added expenditures are related to the creation of the co-responder model funded by House Bill 1590 sales tax collections, creation of a data collection system, including a data collection position that supports race and equity as it relates to the police department, as well as managing schedules in the telestaff system, unfreezing 5 police positions, restoration of some positions eliminated during the COVID-19 budget reductions within the permit center, the street fund, and the senior center, use of fund balance to fund a litter strike team, additional funding for lifeguards, changes already made to positions in 2021, updates to our cost allocation plans, and increased contributions to insurance funds. In the spring of 2020, some very difficult decisions were made for citywide reductions as we anticipated significant losses in revenue due to the COVID-19 crisis. We knew at the time some budget reductions were not sustainable, and as such, we have reinstated some of those reductions in the city's budget with this adjustment. In police, during the 2021 legislative session, significant changes in policing were made. Kent is ahead of the curve, as we have already implemented some of these new changes before the laws were enacted. With the use of House Bill 1590 sales tax revenues, thank you, Council, for making that difficult decision to make sure that that money stayed in Kent. This budget adjustment includes a new co-responder model that brings together mental health professionals with law enforcement personnel. And as we continue to be on the forefront of transparency and accountability in law enforcement, the mid-biennium budget adjustment contains funding for a data collection system, including a data collection position that supports race and equity as it relates to the police department, as well as managing schedules with the telestaff system. So that's the add-on system in the police department when we made that transition to Workday. This position will be funded by the general fund, while ARPA funding will be used to establish a platform for gathering the data. The adjustment includes unfreezing 5 police officer positions that were frozen during the budget reductions in the spring of 2020. Those positions will be funded out of the Criminal Justice Fund. Finally, $500,000 has been set aside to begin funding the replacement of the police department's record management system, Tiburon. We know that if we don't continue to put money aside for those projects, they are not possible to do, as technology is extremely expensive. Economic and community development. Restrictions that were put in place due to the pandemic required our permit center to do some heavy lifting in order to transition to a paperless operation, although the necessary technology was not in place at the time. This temporary solution has also created additional work for staff and created serious backlogs in our permitting system, making it impossible to meet the expectation of our customers. As Amanda is being implemented, and as we navigate stabilization of that technology, the 2022 mid-biennium budget adjustment includes the restoration of a TLT permit technician position, a building inspector, and converts a vacant temporary engineer 2 position to a permanent engineer 4 position. Public Works. Public Works will create a litter strike team made up of 2 TLT maintenance workers and contracted services to provide litter cleanup, recycling, and disposal services throughout the city over the next 3 years. I know all of you have heard from our residents and seen driving around the city that litter continues to be an increasing concern, and this is my attempt to ask you all to fund those positions so that we can get a handle on that litter. The litter strike team will be funded by one-time contributions from the general fund of $1 million, along with $250,000 from the drainage fund, being that a lot of times we're seeing that trash in places where our drainage fund has control. In addition, Public Works will restore an engineer 3 position within the transportation division that was eliminated from the budget in 2020. This position is responsible for managing the city's residential traffic calming program. Again, something I know you've all heard about from our residents. The recent adopted residential traffic calming program modified the program to include consideration of livability in neighborhoods, therefore requiring significantly more analysis to complete each traffic study. Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. The need for senior services is growing across our region. We had a fabulous presentation from our consultant about our senior needs study. There we go, that was a miss. As we return to full use of our senior center, the related programming, seniors are eager to return to programs they enjoyed prior to the COVID shutdown. This budget will restore a senior center coordinator as a TLT position that was eliminated during the budget reductions last fall. The budget adjustment also provides an additional $50,000 for the lifeguard program, fingers crossed that we can hire next summer, and $10,000 for striping and signage at Lake Meridian to address traffic and parking issues during the busy summer months. Again, if any of you are out at the lake, you know what kind of concerns and issues we had with traffic, so trying to find some creative solutions to mitigate that. Information technology. In 2020, a portion of the information technology training budget was reduced by $33,680. This budget adjustment restores those training dollars. It also provides a new position to provide desk-side support for internal customers while reducing the reliance on contractors to fill that role. Something that I feel very strongly about, making sure that we have permanent benefited employees here at the City of Kent, and this is a transition away from contractors to that more permanent position. This position will be funded through a reduction in contractor services budget. In addition, information technologies budget will be increased to account for the rising software maintenance costs and continued need to support for our financial system. Capital budget. As we begin to discuss capital and ARPA funding, it will become clear that our facilities team will have a large project list and a high demand to complete these projects quickly, both now and in the upcoming years. In addition, there is a backlog of work that is in the queue to be completed. For this reason, this budget adjustment includes a 3-year TLT capital projects manager. The Mid-Biennium budget adjustment includes opportunities to invest in capital that were not present when the original budget was developed. Streamlined sales tax mitigation had been eliminated by the state's budget effective July 1, 2020, therefore not included in the city's 21-22 biennial budget. However, during the 21 legislative session, through a lot of hard work, and I know a lot of you played a role in those conversations, the SST mitigation was restored. The city received $3.6 million on June 30th, 2021 for the period of July 2020 through June 30, 21. Beginning in September 21, the city will receive quarterly installments of the SST mitigation, with first installments of just over $900,000. With the restoration of SST mitigation, along with realized increases in our real estate excise tax or revenues or REIT, this mid-biennium budget adjustment includes nearly $5 million in additional funding for capital projects. In addition to setting aside funds for a couple of large known future projects, Tiburon we already talked about, and the financial system replacement, $500,000 to each of those, the capital budget increase is comprised in part of the following. Kent Commons renovations. In previous budgets, we have set aside $1.5 million for renovations at Kent Commons. It's a well-loved but very aging building. This budget will provide an additional $715,000 for HVAC upgrades and to replace the curtain divider wall in the gym. The new HVAC scope includes a new chiller, boiler, and a replacement of the 4 racquetball court units. The curtain wall separates the gym into 2 rooms used for rentals and to split recreation activities. Both items are critical for the operations of the Commons and will add long-term value. City Hall improvements, another aging, well-loved, well-used building. City Hall is an aging building that has required and will continue to require more frequent maintenance should updates not be made to the facility. City Hall is the face of the city and where the council and other important meetings occur. By modernizing the lobby and entrances, we're enhancing the overall perceptions and identity for our city. The doors and awnings are consistent problems and have significant visible rot. The doors have been a consistent security concern and in frequent need of repair. The lobby will be given a minor update, and signage in common areas will be updated to address aging, obsolete, and inconsistent signage. And finally, software stabilization. For the past year, the city has been working diligently to implement new technology to support various departments. Many of those systems have already rolled out, while others are nearing the go-live date. Once launched, these systems require additional time for stabilization, allowing for continued data conversion, maintenance, and implementation of enhancements. This adjustment includes a budget for workday enhancements, telestaff, Laserfish, and Amanda stabilization projects. All right, on to ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act budget. The city was awarded nearly $28.2 million in American Rescue Plan Act grant funding. In June of 2021, the city received its first distribution of nearly $14.1 million, with the next distribution of the same amount slated to be received a year later. The Mid-Biennium budget adjustment includes proposals for the use of some of those ARPA funds in accordance with the framework established and approved by the City Council. So if you guys remember back, we talked about the buckets that we're putting the money in. That framework is outlined as follows. Human Services and Equity Programs, $4.5 million. Economic Development Programs, $9 million. Infrastructure, $4.5 million. And revenue losses of $10 million. Recognizing that over the life of the grant, the needs of the community may change. Therefore, the full amount of the grant has not been budgeted, and we will return to you with when appropriate to bring additional funding proposals forward. Kind of going back to that, we still don't really know what the future holds as we're in the middle of the pandemic and not knowing the full impacts on our community. Managing such a large grant will require additional support within the finance department. The 2022 budget includes a 5-year TLT grant analyst position. This position will come before the City Council in 21 for authorization to create this position so recruitment can begin this fall. In addition to the grant analyst position, the proposed budget includes the following ARPA funded requests. Human Services and Equity Programs of $4.5 million. Of the $4.5 million in ARPA funding allotted to Human Services and Equity Programs, approximately $3.7 million is included in the 2022 Mid-Biennium budget adjustment. The remaining balance will be earmarked for Human Services and Equity Programs and allocated as we are able to assess the ever-changing needs within our community. What may be a need today may be different in the coming months. In addition to supporting the one-time costs associated with the establishment of the policing data collection mentioned earlier, the proposed budget includes Building Resiliency Fund. This Resiliency Fund will provide Human Services with $1.75 million to address the emergent needs in our community and Human Services safety net. Specific investments will be a collaborative process among the Mayor's Office, City Council, and Human Services. Race and Equity Coordinator, a 3-year TLT. This position will be held with the implementation will help with the implementation of the city's race and equity strategic plan, including the plan goals and action items. In addition, this position will assist with important equity-related projects, as well as coordinate the Equity and Inclusion Speaker Series. Equity and Inclusion Speaker Series is the next item on the list. The Speaker Series will feature distinguished leaders who will contribute expert knowledge and diverse perspectives to our collective discussion around concepts like race, equity, diversity, and inclusion. All interactive presentations and workshops will be free to the public, so the program will continue on as it has been for the last several years. $50,000 per year will be allocated over 3 years for a total of $150,000. Translation of city documents. $150,000 will be allocated to begin the process of translating important documents into the top 5 languages spoken by the residents of the City of Kent. Community Navigator Program. These funds will help implement expansion of a technical assistance network comprised of culturally competent business navigators and translator services that are currently located in South King County. And the Human Services Planner is a 5-year TLT. The primary responsibility of this position will be to oversee and monitor the Building Resiliency Fund and provide assistance for other human services related ARPA projects. Without this additional assistance, the program's success will not be possible. It just flat out takes time and resources to be able to administer these programs. Economic development programs, $4.5 million. Currently, Economic and Community Development is researching the feasibility of programs to help businesses as early as this year. Therefore, $2.75 million has been earmarked for such an opportunity. It is anticipated a request will be brought before the City Council later this year to provide increased capital for Kent-based businesses and nonprofits through a contribution to the National Development Council managed Flex Fund. We've had a presentation on that fund. This is a consortium of 5 community development financial institutions that predominantly lend to BIPOC and women-owned businesses at low interest rates. In addition to this program, included in the 2022 budget adjustment, to support economic development programs, we have business and technical assistance. Funding would help implement expansion of technical assistance for micro enterprises by contracting with a permit navigator. It's a complicated system, and if we can figure out how to help our small businesses be successful, that's what this funding is for. The permit navigator would help small businesses research site suitability from a code and cost perspective, and or help design optimal use of space, and support the business owners managing construction projects, architects, general contractors, and tenant improvement build-outs. Support for childcare expansion. Working with childcare resources, we will adapt a successful Pierce County program for South King County communities. Offer mini grants to offset the very high upfront cost barriers to creating new daycares, and grants would offset upfront costs related to rent, maintenance, remodeling, soft design work, but not capital, and staff wages. We know, again, if we're going to rebuild our economy, getting reliable, safe childcare is extremely important to helping people get back into the workforce. So this program would go to support that here in Kent. Support for Minority and Women-Owned Business Accelerator Network, AKA Regional BIPOC Accelerator Network. This is a conversation that's being held all over the region, and Kent has been playing a central role in it. The Seattle Chamber is co-planning with the City of Kent a network of coordination between business accelerators to expand services to our growing BIPOC-owned businesses. Project Feast. Project Feast, the operators of a teaching kitchen and restaurant, Cafe Ubuntu, have been ineligible for nearly every previous round of federal pandemic assistance. However, the number of refugees whom they serve in our community is anticipated to grow in the next 2 years. King County is leading a collaboration including this city and others, plus major nonprofits in the food innovation and food training sectors to develop a new and larger training facility and sales venue. I was down at Cisco Food Systems today on a tour, and they were talking about how do we make sure that we're meeting the needs of the diversity of food types in restaurants that we have, and how are they able to get into some of these smaller niche markets. And this helps train folks up, and then the eventual goal, right, is the packaging and sale of those products. So I'm very excited about the need for this, not only for our residents that are looking for that training, but also businesses as large as somebody like Cisco. STEM education, youth employment readiness, and pre-apprenticeship partnerships. With a dedicated budget for contracting with local partners, city staff in human services and economic development can co-design a targeted program to align program partners and more holistically address long-observed barriers to participation and awareness. So think about all the things we're talking about around Naden, partnering with businesses and making sure we're helping develop that workforce, partnerships with Green River, UW, Kent School District. Washington Space Consortium, a collaboration between the Washington Space Consortium, Green River College, and Kent School teachers by sponsoring a 10-week training module in rocketry and small cube satellite production of UW aeronautics and astronautics. You guys have also had that presentation on what that would look like for our teachers. Meet Me on Meeker, a contribution of $500,000 to be set aside for grant matching to remain competitive when seeking grants for this project. This would be for construction at the intersection at 64th and for design segments further east. We've been very successful in obtaining grants, but we need that match to make us competitive. Willis Street and Naden Avenue intersection improvements. This will add a north leg to the intersection, providing right-in, right-out access to the northbound left turn lanes at 74th Avenue South. This work is part of the Willis Street Gateway improvements and includes a new signal and ancillary improvements required to secure the final WashDOT approval. Infrastructure investments. In the fall of 2021, the city will bring forth a proposal to allocate $75,000 for teleconferencing room hardware. This project will create a more seamless and efficient use of the conference rooms for meetings, allowing for a hybrid of attendees both in person and virtual. We've been living this for the last year, and we know how important having that technology is to being able to be successful in those types of meetings. Within the 2022 Mid-Biennium budget, approximately $4.7 million for infrastructure funded through ARPA has been included and outlined below. Panther Lake Community Park. Very excited about this one. This project will develop a new community park in the Panther Lake neighborhood, which is traditionally underserved. It's traditionally an underserved area in the city and is identified as being park deficient. I think that's kind of an understatement for that area that we annexed from King County. This project would represent the first phase of improvements, which may include a playground, restrooms, parking and stormwater, a loop and nature trails, open play lawn, shelter, and connection to the Seuss Creek Trail. Military and Veterans Drive placemaking and maintenance. This funding would be used to leverage grant investment in the I-5 SR 509 gateway to create a welcoming Veterans Drive between Military and the Green River that will resonate with pride in our city and our local veterans and military service members. That is also something I know that you all have heard from our residents on the importance of that. Council office move and technology upgrade. This project will move broadcast equipment to the first floor and upgrade outdated equipment to provide a better viewing experience and transparency for the public. In addition, it will move the council office and provide a publicly accessible first floor conference room. Since we have locked down the upper floors of City Hall, the need to have a space to meet on the first floor is really important, so this redesign would allow for an additional conference room space. Centennial Center customer service counter improvements. This project is a joint venture between Economic and Community Development, Finance, and Facilities. A new customer service desk and remodeling of the permit center in the Centennial building will provide a new customer experience in the lobby of the building while updating safety features for employees. Our employees in those areas are very exposed to a variety of things, including what we've got going on with COVID. So really addressing long-term safety in those areas. It will provide a new customer experience in the lobby of the building while updating safety features for employees and utilizing valuable square footage inside each office space to meet the needs for meeting spaces and a growing workforce. It will address safety concerns that currently exist at the customer service counter, and COVID has completely changed the operating model of the permit center, rendering the current design obsolete. Think about that large area and all the big counter space. Now that we're transitioning to Amanda, that some of the need for that space goes away. Security engineer, a 3-year TLT and related security stabilization expenses, cybersecurity infrastructure. Over the last 9 months, the city has been building a security operations center policies, procedures, and standards and guidelines. In an effort to continue to develop and mature the SOC, additional staff support is needed. So this would be a TLT to build that system out. Finally, revenue losses of $10 million. Of the $10 million allocated for revenue losses, the 2022 proposed budget includes $2.25 million for fleet vehicle replacements. It also earmarks $150,000 to address the revenue shortfall in the city's lodging tax fund that occurred throughout the pandemic. We continue to assess the citywide needs and will bring forth to the City Council a proposal to utilize those funds. We have faced a number of challenges while putting this budget adjustment together. Although this is a mid-biennium budget adjustment, we continue to be mindful of the things ahead, particularly the impacts on the 23-24 biennial budget process. We know we have work to do with the upcoming biennial budget as we continue to navigate the structural imbalance, inflation, and labor costs. This adjustment is a reflection of balancing department service delivery needs while thinking of the impacts on future budgets. So that's the use of one-time funds, the TLT positions, because we know that this, in a lot of cases, is not going to be sustainable as we move forward. The utilization of temporary limited term positions will provide us with the flexibility needed in the future. Tonight, I respectfully transmit this mid-biennium budget adjustment to the City Council for consideration. This document is a representation of the collaborative efforts of city leadership, City Council, city staff, and the Kent community. I want to say thank you for your engagement in the process up to this point, and then the work that you're going to be doing as you go forward in deliberations. I would like to extend my gratitude to city leadership and the finance department for their hard work as well. These are never easy decisions, and when we're looking for those needed resources and having to look back at our employees and say, we know that there is a need, but we can't fund, we have to pick and choose. It's been an extremely difficult process for our departments, and they've been willing to roll up their sleeves and make decisions that really are the decisions for the betterment of the entire city. I am extremely grateful of the de-siloing that has happened in the process up to this point, and the give and take that our directors and our departments have provided, and the amount of time that finance has spent putting this together. And looking at our fabulous team here in the front row, we have been in a perpetual budget process for what feels like ever, and they have all, again, rolled up their sleeves and worked a lot of late hours. I know that I've gotten a lot of emails that have been written in the middle of the night. Michelle. But they've gotten the work done. So we are here today and could not be more grateful for all of our team here in putting this document together for your consideration. So thank you, Council, very much, and look forward to continued conversations as we work towards the passing of our mid-biennium budget adjustment. Okay, awkward transition. Now, back up here, that will conclude our special council meeting for today. Following this, we will adjourn this meeting at 4:30. The council will reconvene for workshop, and we will be getting a presentation from Paula on what all of this means and a beginning to put together of council questions and ways to move us forward. So with that, we are adjourned.